That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. One quick announcement before we get started. Tickets are available for our Hawaii conference/retreat next year and on the Big Island, 2026, April 20th through the 24th. And we're very excited. And if you're interested in joining us on the Big Island, we're going to be out in the water with some dolphins and whales. We're going to be going to some sacred sites. We have some amazing presenters, which we're going to announce the lineup very soon. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's a magical place. I went in 2019 and I've been dying to get back. So this is my opportunity to get back there. And if anybody would like to join us, we're very excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can go to our website, journeytotruth.online, for all that information. We'd love to see you there. Today, we have a returning guest, Morgan Johnson. We very recently interviewed her. We did part one of what I knew was going to be a multi-part interview after reading her book and talking to her some more. After the interview, after the podcast, I just met up with her and we interviewed for our upcoming documentary about the secret space program, which stay tuned for more news on that because that is in the works and it's going to be heavily in the works here very shortly. And then now here we are for part two. So after I met up with Morgan and we went out to dinner and stuff, she was telling us some more stories, just blowing my mind. I was like, yeah, we need to do this part two sooner than later. So here we are. Welcome back to the show, Morgan.
Thanks for having me. And I had a good time with you guys. It was a lot of fun in Mount Shasta.
Yeah, yes, it was. Yeah, we just had an amazing trip there, which we might even go live and talk about that because I think it would be pretty cool to do that at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
But today we're gonna get into Morgan's journey and what happened. So we're gonna in the first part, we ended up where she joined the army and she was invited into the 20 and back and then brought to the moon. So we're gonna start from, and that's where we ended basically. So we're gonna start from the moon and we're gonna have Morgan kind of retell us what happened on the moon and then what happened after that. And then there's some amazing things. So I can't wait to get into it. But so basically, Morgan, if you want to recap kind of what happened when you got to the moon, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so when we went to get to the moon, you had to vertically go through the surface into the inside of the moon. And we went into a large hangar where we were met by the commander of the base. I named her Liza in my movie. That's what I give her for the script that I'm writing about the story. So she gave us a debriefing on what we were going to experience there, which was first we went into the chambers, the healing chambers, just to make sure that our bodies were in full potential. And that was just for a few days, like 3 days. It healed any minor issues, anything that we had going on at the time. And then we got our assignments and IDs and uniforms for this Space Force. And again, I want to tell people that I don't have 100% of the information. I'm not sure if it was called the Space Force when I first joined because I went so early, but I know that it was by the time I left. I know that for sure.
And remind people what year this was again for you.
This was 2004, I believe. It was I had been in the military since 2003. And so it was either the end of 2004 or the beginning of 2005.
Okay.
Yes. So once we got there and did the healing process, they really made an emphasis on taking care of your body and making sure that that we ate well. There really wasn't a lot of options to not eat well and that kind of thing. But we got our uniforms. I believe we had black uniforms at that time. Each duty station had their own uniforms. And so they would change color, but not really style that much, just because it was all the same military style. I got orders to go to a school in Alpha Centauri called Regards. Me and my boyfriend, who at the time, both were sent there to officer school so that the commander put it to me, like, to be a human female was going to be a tough ride. Like, that's how she said it to me. It was going to be tough. And so she wanted me to have some rank to make sure that I was safe and that we got some more women on the force. She said I was one of 16 in the fleet at the time, which was kind of impressive to me. And I was pretty excited. And I chose to study psychology after school to become an officer.
And this school was on Alpha Centauri?
It was in Alpha Centauri. I don't have the name of the planet, but there were 3 suns, which were amazing. They had the technology, whichever being, I'm not 100% sure which being, but the solar system itself was able to put a ring around one of their suns and extract the life force from that sun to use to for whatever use they needed, for weapons, for shields, for it just, depended. But they had that technology to use, which was really amazing to see. The school building was like this copper color, and it was filled with mostly, it was people from all over the galaxy. So it was a lot of different types of beings. There was only very few humans there.
So you said there was 3 suns on this planet. So, well, first of all, when you say Alpha Centauri, so I'm thinking of a planet, but you're talking about a system.
It's a system, yeah.
Okay.
Alpha Centauri is the solar system, and then there's planets. At least to my knowledge, that's how it works.
Okay. And then, so within that system, the planet you were on had 3 suns?
Yes.
And then one of those suns, they had managed to harness the energy from and use it for the technology of the planet, or?
Yes, for not just the planet, but I'm sure there's ships. I'm sure I'm not 100% sure what they were using it for, but we could see that there was, it looked like a metal ring around the actual sun itself.
Interesting.
Which is new information to me. I get new memories every day, sometimes once a month. Sometimes, information has been coming in a lot lately.
Yeah. Yeah,
Things can change. I do want people to know that like my story evolves because my memories come back so, they come back steadily, but what it does is it gives me more information about something that I already know. So things can change over time.
right. It's like fragmented. Yeah, it comes
Yeah.
back in
Mhm.
pieces, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you're in this school then, and then, they're teaching you're learning psychology?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens after that?
So I graduated that school, got my first promotion, which was first lieutenant. And then I started dating one of my teachers who was a non human. She was a Rihanian from the planet Raya. And um, her and I decided to go on. We wanted to be together. She was done with her teaching contract. And so I decided to look for missions that we could go to together, or duty stations we could go to together. And there was a classified option that was called, actually, I don't know what it was called. It was just said that there was a classified and leaving soon. And so me and her decided to both put in for it. We both got to go. And when we got there, it ended up being a StarGate team called on the ship was called Portus.
Wow, okay, so is it a Stargate program similar to, like, what we see on TV, or is this something different?
It's very similar. There are differences to my knowledge. The information is probably taken when we think about how people come up with movies and the imagination and how it works to be inspired. You're being inspired by galactic information. With that, when they say like there's nothing new under the sun, they're saying that all information is being dispersed throughout all galaxies. So we're all sharing information. So yes, that movie is real, or that show, it's a show and a movie, is real and based on true events. Absolutely. So it was similar. We had 3-man teams. Um, each one we each had our own vehicles, and I guess I could explain the actual Stargate itself was like a 20-foot man-made portal, and it connected to all the portals all over the galaxy, including Earth. And this only one person on the ship was allowed to know how to use it. Like, it was very classified, very extreme to have anybody there. It was very hush hush. We can talk about later that the reptilians were mostly in control of that, as they came to visit us right before I left. And so we jumped once a month, and we were looking for other planets outside of Earth in case we destroyed it, is what they told us. That doesn't mean that that's actually why. We were just soldiers doing what we were told.
So this is fascinating. In the show, in the movie, they do recon. They'll send a little robot, like kind of like a Mars rover looking thing, through to scope out the area and bring back a report. Do you guys do something similar?
We did. So we had Sierra, is the name of, was my girlfriend at the time. She came with us. She was a psychic. So she would astral travel to the planet prior to going, and then also use her gifts when we were there. So we used that type of thing instead of having robots.
Right.
Seems a lot better to do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the little robot, like,
Yeah.
The robot seems more of like a Hollywood thing. It never made sense to me,
Yeah,
Sure.
totally.
But that makes perfect sense if you're remote viewing or
Yeah.
astral projecting to the place first. Yeah. Yeah, and that actually lines up with some other testimonies I've heard. Somebody I know was talking about basically they would be sent in to, before we clear like an underground base or tunnel, they would send in like a psychic or an astral remote viewer to go and like kind of map out the tunnel system and bring back the data to the men before they actually went physically. So if they're doing that on Earth, if that's true, then of course that would work through the Stargate. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then, so the reptilians were more or less in control of this at the time?
Well, yeah. I mean, the way we didn't know that at the time, but right when we were leaving, so I did a 12-month contract with them. And I did get an early rank, which actually caused problems later because people were pissed that I got promoted early. But there was a reptilian that came and like questioned in a very negative sense, like, is there anything that you're not telling us? Have you found anything? And like, he was very forceful with the commander of our unit. And we didn't find anything. None of the planets were either too harsh, they were too hot, too cold, water that would kill you. It was just there. We didn't find anything that was usable information, at least when I was there.
And basically they were just looking for a place to settle, just
Yeah.
looking for life. Okay.
Yeah. So,
And-
yeah. And making sure there wasn't life already there that we wouldn't be able to settle with, and it was interesting on I only remember right now one of the missions, and we did lose the third person that was with us, who was our security guy. We did lose him to like a really giant animal type being. We ended up having to kill that being, but the guy got taken in the process of that, which was kind of sad.
Interesting. So you mentioned, at what point did you encounter the Arcturians that you were telling me about at dinner?
So that was my next duty station after I left Portus. did the same thing where looked through different openings for duty stations and found that Venus had needed some security for the Arcturians who were trying to find and make healing serums for the sick. So it's like through botanicals and different essences that they used. So getting to Venus was amazing and insane because Venus is a very hot, dense, crazy planet. We had to jump from a ship. There was 5 of us there, and we had to put on in this. It was an atmospheric bubble around each individual person so that they could breathe and handle the pressure. And each one of these bubbles themselves were coordinated to the drop point and where we were going on Venus. So it pulled us. It was like magnets, like magnetized to the actual location. So when we jumped out of the ship, it literally drug us to where we were going. And it was just to a building. It looked like a regular building that had a force field around it. And we walked in, and it was blue marble and had gold, like circular hieroglyphics everywhere. It was absolutely amazing. Like structurally, it was beautiful inside. But inside, the thing about Venus is that to get to the actual cities you have to change dimensions. You have to go higher up in planes. So to do that, there was a dimensional doorway that was shaped like a triangle. And it looks like time and space had just had a hole punched out of it. And you could see nothing on the other side until you walked through. And so when I walked through, you could feel a buzzing, a sensation across the whole body, and like your bones, like you knew your DNA structure itself was like being upgraded. You couldn't tell how, or you didn't know what was going on. But the second I walked through to the other side of that dimensional doorway, we were in a giant, huge city in an actual military base, but the military base was filled with, civilian beings everywhere.
That is one of the most fascinating things, and it makes the most sense to me. Here in the 3D, Venus is very hot, as we know, and it would be impossible to live on the surface. That's why our scientists say there can't be life there, never considering that life is existing in these higher dimensions. And in fact, it's the same way here on Earth too. There's higher planes of existence here that we're starting to tap into, and some people are even beginning to perceive, as the consciousness of the planet is elevated. But I would imagine it's the same on potentially all planets, and even the secret space program itself might it be existing in a higher plane where all this stuff is perceivable. But that makes perfect sense to me that you would you would have to go through this doorway, right, to proceed to this portal effectively. And okay, so the the actual city itself on Venus. So when did you encounter these Arcturians? Because the way you described them, I thought was very beautiful.
Yeah, they were amazing beings. So that's my next memory is just working with them in a science lab. I was just security for them. I guess they had some problems. I'm assuming that's why they needed some sort of security, both there and out looking for things. But they were tall, blue. They had pointy chins, and then they had, like I was talking about at the building that we went into with the circular golden hieroglyphs. They had them throughout on their whole body, and they were feminine energy, and they were stoic and beautiful, and you could tell that like every word they spoke was coming straight from the source itself. It was really epic just to even be in contact with these beings for as long as I got to be. It was beautiful.
So were these hieroglyphs like tattoos, or would it look like
Yeah.
part of them?
See, I don't know. It looked like tattoos, but they were raised up. So I mean, it did seem like a tattoo, but every Arcturian that I encountered did have them. So it could be a ritualistic thing. It could be just something they're born with.
Wow. So, okay, I guess continue. What happened from there?
Yeah. Well, I have a cute story from Venus that's fun. So Sierra and I lived together, and she came home one day and had a belt that she put on, and it popped up a screen on the wall, and it was able to, you picked something, and it was able to change the appearance of your physical body, because on Venus the density isn't as intense. You're more pliable, so this belt was able to like give you white hair, or give you really long eyelashes, or give you really long nails, or a tail, or something like really superficial. And it was just short, just as you were using this belt. But it was really fun for us to go through and play through this menu of like just changing random things. We had a lot of fun doing that. But that's the last time I saw her, was a few days after that. I spent 5 years there, I believe, got promoted again. And then my next duty station was going to be Mars.
So
So I went,
that's very similar to me. It sounds kind of like no different than us flipping through filters on our phone,
yeah,
all the stuff, and just
yes,
being goofy about it.
yes.
And I mean, the way technology is accelerating right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to even experience something like that very soon, to where it's more of like actually a hologram that you can see your whole body
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. Aaron,
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
did you have any questions about anything before we move forward?
No, I mean going back to the different dimensions, different things exist on the different dimensions, right? That's something I've noticed just throughout all the years of my research and journey and all this stuff, is that I keep hearing from different sources over and over again that same thing. Tyler, remember that anonymous Area 51 whistleblower uh,
Yeah.
video? He talks about that, and he says this is common knowledge in the Black Ops community. The government at the highest levels know about this. They have technology that can view into these other dimensions, he says. And then, so he's like, a planet in the third dimension, like Venus or like Jupiter, let's say, that looks uninhabitable in our dimension and is uninhabitable in our dimension. You just go up the dimensions and it is habitable, and there's beings living on there. So Venus, like we hear about Venusians all the time, right? There's Venusian contactees. Valiant Thor is supposed to be all this stuff, but then you're like, but how? It's uninhabitable. No, it's only in the third dimension. You just go up one dimension up, basically, and then probably ones above that. There's all kinds of beings living on there, and that's where they're able to. A lot of these higher dimensional beings, it seems, are able to shift down to our dimension easily, but we aren't, at least currently on this planet, able as easily to shift up.
Yeah.
But we can. It's possible. But yeah. And anyways, it just correlates with a lot of it's easy to know when a truth, you keep hearing it from these different sources that aren't connected.
Right.
That usually means there's a greater body of truth. So yeah, that definitely lines up.
It also reminds me, of Daryl James' testimony with the density chamber
Daryl James talks.
being
Yeah.
pushed up into a higher dimension or density so he could
Right.
perceive these extraterrestrials. But the other thing that whistleblower, he talked about all the planets, as far as they know, exist in these other dimensions. But as you elevate in dimensions, they change form. And
Right.
exactly what he said, he did use Jupiter as an example. So it's inhabited. And there's
Mhm.
also, so not just inhabited, but there's like space stations and satellites. I mean, there's this whole other thing. So when we hear these testimonies, we have to consider that, you might not be able to get a telescope and go find this stuff, but it's could be perceivable if you were able to, look through that veil into the higher dimensions. So anyway,
I
yeah,
believe
that's
he even said there were planets that only existed in certain dimensions. So like in our dimension, there might not be a planet there, and then you go up to like the fifth dimension, there's planets that.
right.
Yeah, that one makes. And here's my little I have a little spiel about like Elon trying to go to Mars is a little tough because
Are in our solar system
he's
that aren't in
not
the third.
going to
You know,
find
there's also that
anything.
going on as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
Aaron broke up just a little bit, but go ahead again, Morgan.
that's okay. Oh, I was just gonna say that like Elon going to Mars is not really gonna help our disclosure movement because he's not gonna find the things that he's he's saying he's not scared that if aliens are there. And I don't have anything against Elon Musk. I'm just saying when he gets there and people are like, "Oh, there's no aliens here." It's like, well, you're not in the right place or you're not higher enough vibration to be able to see them if you were in the right place, like that does make me nervous for the future for us, for people who are trying to get people to believe and understand that there is more out there.
Right. I mean, I think inevitably there's going to be a large percentage of the planet that's going to understand that, and then the percentage that doesn't, they're going to be stuck on that timeline where this
Yeah.
is all brand new to them, and the narrative that they push will be the narrative, will be the reality for them. So yeah, and
They'll
then
think
Exactly.
they'll think the only way forward is to merge their body with technology and AI and that the whole transhumanist agenda, right? I think there's going to be a big portion. And Elon Musk, I'm sorry, but he talks about that all the time. Like he seems to be kind of like one of the people leading the charge on that. It's like there's going to be this split where there's a whole bunch of humanity's going to become this transhumanist thing and stay on this lower timeline. Then there's going to be a whole bunch that are ascending and awakening. Which
right. So really quick, going back to the Stargate program. So basically, they took advantage of a natural portal system, the cosmic web, as some people call it, and they were able to implant portals within that natural system that we can access, man-made portals that we could access. And this seemed to be something that had been in existence for how long to you?
I mean, it was ancient. There is, I mean, that's as far as I know. Um, Probably since close to the. I mean, I don't know. I don't know a very, 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 very long time. But it is um, highly guarded, highly revered, and very important. So, I mean, it's a big. I don't know what the right word is. Um, we'll just say that it's very important for it to be stay hidden. Our ship was camouflaged in the middle of nowhere. It was a small black mat disc. It only held 10 people. There was not, I mean, you don't talk about it. Nobody talked about it afterwards. It was highly enclosed information. So,
So wait, you mean the Stargate itself was in a ship?
yes, it was on a
Okay.
ship. Yeah.
And would the ship move locations or was it
It
a sta
could. It could, but it didn't while I was there.
Okay. And to your knowledge, do you know where the Stargates on Earth would be or the Stargate on Earth would be located?
No, my information comes directly from working in a military sense. They only gave us the information that we needed
Right, of
to
course.
do the job.
Yeah, okay.
that's what they do. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Need
when
to know.
you get to Mars, then what happens for you on Mars?
Well, Mars was called Mars Max by like the rest of the fleet or the field. Like that's just and I've heard some conflicting things. I try to stay out of other people's opinions on certain planets and the structures of those. But from my standpoint, where I went in the city that I was a part of, it was sad. It was, we did have to enter the same way as the moon into caverns into the inside of it, where, man made mountains and things have been dug out. Most of the planet had to be dug out to be usable. It was beautiful, but the people there or the beings there were kind of in destitute. It was one of those planets that there wasn't any, um, what's the word? There wasn't a lot of opportunity for trade because there wasn't a lot of anything there. It was just rocks. So there wasn't any way for a lot of the residents to leave or to even travel or to see things or to, so it was very um, destitute is the word I would say. There was a lot of people begging for things. It was very, it
Right.
wasn't good.
It was kind of like Total Recall style, and a lot of people living
Right.
in
Yeah, it
poverty.
was also, like, yeah, there was poverty was huge. Yeah.
Which
And
is
everything was just dug out of the rocks. So their houses were all just small little like rooms. It's like I think the Star Wars had a movie, I think the first movie where everybody was trading little gadgets and stuff. They had just big tables. It was just like that. People were just trading for little things that they could get. And whatever you had to make sure to keep because people would steal. And it was harsh. It was a harsh environment.
That's fascinating, and that was particularly where you went on
Yes.
the planet, not like you had a chance to explore the whole planet.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and then what was your purpose there?
So I was patrol, just keeping and policing the area, keeping peace, making sure as much as I could, I had a little anti-gravity propulsion buggy, they call them, small little vehicle, a little bit bigger than a motorcycle, that I would drive around town and make sure everybody was okay and that there wasn't too much craziness happening.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so fascinating. So, and do you know, like, was there any reason you would go from a Stargate program to patrol, like security guard? I mean, did you not have a say in that?
Well, okay, so from what I understand, I got in trouble a little bit with my unit in Venus because I started some programs and things to help other soldiers and women. I was really, by the time I left Venus, they were starting to like downsize my involvement and not letting me work with the Arcturians in the field. They just started like holding back on my ability to do my job. And so I got really bitter, and I am a person who is not quiet when things aren't going my way, or I think something's in some kind of injustice. I will speak about it. And so I kind of got I wouldn't say in trouble, but I got put on the worst assignment possible. For this.
Yeah, that
That
seems to
wasn't
be.
my.
Yeah, that's a common theme. I feel like in a lot of these testimonies, um, it's very cutthroat. Like if you're not doing exactly what they want, or even probably like the military on Earth, you start asking too many questions, you're gonna go here instead of you're not gonna get
Yeah.
the top secret access anymore because they know that you're a threat or you could be a problem. Um, okay. But yeah, that's interesting. So you were on Mars patrolling for how long?
Every contract was a 5-year contract except Portus, which was just that 1 year. Um, so I did do the 5 years on Mars. There were only 3 women on Mars. 2 were lower enlisted, and then I was the officer in charge of those 2. There was a lot that happened there. It's all in the book, which should just be easier to go through all of that. But after that, I was assigned to Saturn, but I was really pissed at the Army by then. I didn't want to be in at the Army, Space Force. My bad. I didn't want to be in space anymore. I was just done with not having a partner, not having um, someone to share life with. The it is tough to be in space because there's no traditions. There's no, especially when you're on a ship all the time. When you spend most of your time on a ship or in a base, a military base to be exact, you're dealing with, I'm an artist. And so I want things to be pretty and things to be artistic and life to be fun and enjoyable. And it was none of that. And so I felt very stifled. I felt very held back. There's another part of this that is going to be in the second book, which is about my alter that was being used for nefarious reasons on the side, right? So when I was in the MK Ultra program, I separated consciousness. So I had an Ultra soldier in me, and they were using her for different missions, we'll say, right? Whatever it was that they needed. But so when I was supposed to go to Saturn to keep me in because I was freaking out so much and I wanted to leave and I was gonna get out, they told me that they would grow a ship for me or let me have a ship. But that's how they give people ships, is that they grow them from your DNA. And so that's how they got me to stay in, because I wanted to see that.
Yeah, and that lines up exactly with what we've heard. So explain to me what that process looked like for you. They took your DNA and how did they grow a ship?
So the first 3 months, it was in a tank and on a hangar with a bunch of other ships that were being grown at the same time. Trying to think of how big it got in that tank, maybe the size of a car or something like that. And then after that, it was set up with machines in the hangar itself, and it grew like tens of feet a day. And I want to say it ended up being the size of like a 20-man crew. I do believe it was 20. Um, but I just have to refer to the book. It's so much information that it's hard for me to
Sure.
to hold all of it all the time. And then it only grew the bones of it, right? So, like a human would grow the bones first. It's the same idea. So just the structural outline of, I actually have a picture of it. I wish I would have sent it to you. So maybe I can send it to you and you can put it on the screen.
Yeah, I
I
will.
had an artist draw uh, a digital picture of my ship for me so we can show them what it looked like. Um,
Yeah, that'd be great.
and yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send that to you after this for sure. So when I got, then we put all the outside of it together. There was a being that had to be, what's the word? Like connected to the ship. So it had like tentacles. Had a being that had tentacles that could connect to the ship and talk to the ship, because it was a conscious being, right? It was built from my DNA. So it had a conscious thought. It didn't have feelings and things like that, but it did have consciousness. And I could speak to it directly, but no one else could. To start the machine, I had to use my handprint. And in the end, I kind of learned that there was a backdoor reason they were doing all of this for me. It was so that that alter of mine could use the ship for other reasons, right? To be taken and do missions when I wasn't available.
Wow. That's absolutely fascinating. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that line up.
Yeah.
The handprint, activating it. So it's funny how they would entice you into staying. Of course, you wouldn't want to grow their own chip and see that process and be involved in it. And we heard many people say they grow ships, but I've never really heard anyone explain it the way you did. Did you ever get a chance? So do you have memory of piloting it?
Yeah. I have some memory of like a couple of the, you could call them missions, but they were just small. It was like once I became ship commander, I didn't really have, I started to get to go to other big, what's the word? Meetings, I guess you could call them, with the galactic higher ups of the system that were watching over. And so I would get different tasks to like go give Mars supplies, or to go, drop things off at Saturn, or to, different tasks, you could call them. And so, yeah, I do remember going on some of those tasks. And in the second book, I'll talk more about that, because I did end up meeting and dating someone from one of the like cargo containers that held the supplies that we would, take from space to space. A lot of it is very similar to a lot of movies that are out there where, like there's a show. We talked
Expanse?
about this.
The
Say it
ex
again.
the Expanse?
The Expanse,
Oh yeah.
exactly. That there's a lot of that. It's a very similar vibe where there's cargo holding supply containers and different things like that, where I would take stuff from one to the other.
Do you at any point in time, do you recall seeing encountering, councils or galactic federations or anything like that?
I was I was strictly military. The councils would have. No, I'm going to say no. I did experience so on Saturn, which was my last duty station, which was absolutely amazing. Um, that is where they held some of, like, it was at the core of Saturn. There were three bases in a triangle around the core of Saturn. And one of the bases was where they had the galactic meetings. And so I wouldn't say it was a council or it was like a certain federation. It was the entirety of galactic forces in general, right? So it was all of those put together into one room, giant, unbelievably big room. And then that's where the tasks would be given out for the what needed to be done and where and how the solar system was going, how the galaxy was going, different. Um, but I was not yet in this. So I did two enlistments. This whole book and like my whole speech and all of this is just about the first enlistment. And in this enlistment, I didn't have any say yet in these um, experiences of like what was going to be done. I was just kind of sitting and learning to be a part of it, learning to be around so many big people, that type of thing.
Wow. Were your intuitive empathic abilities ever utilized in any of the missions that you did?
Not as me.
No.
That's the best way I can say it. I think that Mia is the name of my altar, and she used hers, but I was not even aware of mine at the time. I didn't have a clue. I did have an activation by Sierra in the experiences, but there was no. I didn't know that I could be that I was going to become psychic, so I didn't have my senses yet.
Okay, so whenever you say your altar was being activated and used for missions, would this be like as an example, while you're on patrol on Mars, you're just, doing your duty, and if they needed you for something, they would come activate you and take you, but you wouldn't recall where you went?
Yes, they use a code sentence, and it would just switch personalities, and they'd go give an order to do something and then switch back, and I would never know the difference.
Right, right. Yeah, kind of like, I mean, I feel like you experienced things like that on Earth before you ever went to the programs, right? Very, very similar. I mean, we do that. Our intelligence agencies do that now for assassins here without ever leaving the planet. The Manchurian candidates and all that stuff. But it's interesting how it's like you would think when you were brought into programs, it would just always you would always be in that altar. But it's interesting to me how they still keep you switched off until they need you. I just assume you would always be switched on and ready to roll.
No, they wanted me because I'm a very social person. I'm polite. I'm easy to be around, comforting to people. I have a really good energy in that way. Mia does not. Mia is a soldier who does what she's told. She does not have many emotions at all. Not great with people. Not She has a job to do and she does it, and that's all there is to that.
Right. Were you aware of any form of a war taking place while you're in the programs?
So there was a side mission, it's in the book, that I was taken on where we were told that we were going to help some of my Venetian friends. Their families and friends were under attack, so we went to help them. And it was a civil war that was going on. But that time I do remember knowing that, or finding out that the commander of that ship had actually had a request from the reptilians to steal some mercury that wasn't being guarded at the time because of the war that was going on. So really, we went to do that. So I did go out and help during the war, but giving aid, pulling people into the ship, that kind of thing. But I didn't know that's what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going on the side with the mercury. Mercury is there's different types of mercury out there, and it's a very commodity. It's a big commodity that certain people, they used it for the Looking Glass project on Earth.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know it's used in time travel for sure, especially in vapor form, like vaporized mercury. Do you know, like, in any other technologies they were using it?
Anti-gravity. It's a big anti-gravity thing too, right?
Right. Yeah.
That would make sense.
Do you ever recall any artificial gravity plates or anything like that like, would hold you down on certain planets or whatever?
We use them for our buggies. We call them buggies. But me being introduced to them or having any like one-on-one contact was just using the machines themselves.
Okay. So we were talking about war. I was asking you if like you had encountered any war, if you were aware of a war, but I meant more on like a bigger level, like
Mm.
like this big grand war like we see in Star Wars, good versus evil. Like, was there something like that constantly happening?
Not from my knowledge. Like I said, I was just when you're in the military, you're not privy to anything you don't need to know. Need to know only is a very I mean, there was talk of reptilians wanting more control than they had. There was talk of different things, but there was never any inclination of it. I didn't see it, just wasn't in my scope.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty. You never know, you might have a little nugget of information in there. I have to ask.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so I don't exactly know where we are in the story as far as okay, they grew you the ship,
We
right?
grew the ship.
And you were on
Yeah.
Saturn, and then what took place after that?
So we went to Saturn. I think we did talk about this last time I was on. I'm not sure. But getting to Saturn was amazing. The building where I've been talking about those meetings had the most amazing structure that you've ever seen in your life, that around the outside of it had statues of civilizations that had fallen. So it was like a reminder to everybody in there why they were doing what they were doing. And it's a reminder to us to know that there are many types of beings that are helping us out and making sure that we're okay, that nothing happens to us, and that no matter who's trying to take control or not, there are bigger and stronger cultures out there that do keep an eye on what's going on.
The statues on Saturn you were talking about reminded me of the Easter Island statues. And I remember reading about in the Thea Uber prophecy that each of those statues represented a different star nation or a different race that had been here, and it was to honor them. And I feel like Lemuria, ancient Lemuria, and those statues might have been something very similar here on Earth, like what you experienced on Saturn.
Very possible. I do kind of want to give a cool story about Saturn too. Um, so on Saturn, like I was saying, that there are three different military bases around the core of Saturn itself. There's also many other stations and bases within Saturn, like tons of them. But the one that I was at, so each one of those three, it was the gold, silver, and bronze. The gold was held by the reptilians, and no one was allowed to enter, to go in or out, but they were connected by hyperspeed tunnels that were very cool, where you could get there. You could get to, because it was really far apart in space, but these hyperspeed tunnels would allow you to get there much quicker. But the silver base was amazing because it had a giant like chess game, a giant. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to express how big this chess game was, but it had giant pieces where it was a team building experiment or exercise that entire companies of soldiers would come, and it would take 3 people each to turn on these giant electric moving pieces, and they'd have to figure it out together. There was like instructions on each piece, and they would have to play this game together. And it was this, I mean, it was just an amazing thing to see. Like, that's the first thing you would see when you were coming into the actual core of the planet. So that was cool. But after Saturn, on that, well, see, that was the end of that first enlistment for me. Saturn was the last station that I was at. So in the book, I go into the age regression process, and I do that. The people reading the book will know that that isn't when I left, but I did tell the process of me leaving. So going back to Earth. So we could go into that if you want.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and it's confusing to people. The secret space program is becoming more and more of a taboo topic, even amongst ufology or ufologists, because they don't understand the technology. They think space isn't real, all this crazy stuff. So if we can explain, like, okay, what does this age regression process look like? How are you taken in, served 20 years, brought back without ever aging a year on Earth?
Yes. Well, it is a process, and I don't have 100% of the information. I'm going to say that now. I'm going to give what I do remember. The age regression process is a lot like the Avatar movie, where they go into the Avatar. What's it called? I don't know, the bed.
Yeah.
Where they switch consciousness, but it's a bed like that, where you spend 7 days, and it just has a goo substance and like an indentation, and you lay in that, and it will regress your age back to your own DNA sequencing from when you came in. So that had been recorded, and the I don't know the technology, but I know this bed is what did it. There Once that was completed and you got back to the age that you had left, I'm sure this is going to be controversial, is that everybody's going to have their own take about how they got in, how they got out, that kind of thing. We have to talk about timeline. So when we talk about timelines, there are infinite timelines that are happening all the time. And these timelines, a lot of them just die off. A lot of them don't come to fruition because not enough energy is put into that timeline. It's like to us sitting here right now. It's like if I had a decision to make, that I'm single, but if I was gonna marry someone, right? I have the choice to either marry them or not, right? So those 2 timelines would both exist because both decisions are possible, and we have infinite potentials. If you learn about quantum physics, you learn about potentiality, right? So I say that because another body can be taken from one of those timelines that's just going to die out anyway. And that's what they did for us, was they took out a body from another timeline and came and so put that consciousness into my, I guess, my original body. At least that's how it felt to me. And I say this in the book, that it could have been the opposite. I don't know. But I was put into a consciousness machine where one was moved into the other. And then I was brought back to the barracks of the day before I left. I don't know if does that even make sense?
I mean, yeah.
Let me say this. The reason they regressed the body is so that the body remembers that it is that young.
Okay.
Then they switch it into a body from that timeline. So what they do with the other body, I don't know. And I was very suspicious of that. I did not like that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely talk about this a lot on the show, and this is something I wrote about in my book, multiple timelines and stuff, and even swapping people from timelines to timeline. I believe this happens in the private sector, including the secret space program, but I hadn't really considered it as far as like when you come back from the 20 and back, right? I haven't really considered that they were bringing you from another timeline and then putting whatever, how you just explained it. So I would say it's all possible. It doesn't sound crazy to me. And if you're remembering it wrong, then you're, whatever. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But we know something happened, right?
Yes. Yes. And I
Yeah.
just woke up like with an intense anxiety and wild depression that I had never had before. And like I had said in the beginning, I was dating someone when I left. And so I ended up back with him, even though we hadn't been together, obviously, in those 20 years. And he had went too. So he had his own issues happening at the same time. Um, and I ended up going, it's funny because they put together a cheerleading squad for the Army. So I ended up being on the cheerleading squad right at the exact time I came back. And I think that they did that to distract me because they knew that that was something I wanted to do in like high school, but I never got to do. It was perfect timing for them to have me have something to distract any memories or of any, anxiety and all these problems that were going to come from me having went. And then I did end up having surgery and they asked me to leave. So I left the military on a medical discharge after surgeries.
Okay. So that's interesting. The cheerleading thing, using it as a distraction. So you didn't have the memories immediately when you came back, but you knew something happened.
I just knew that something was wrong. I knew something was very wrong because I had this anxiety that I didn't have before because I had a good life. I had a good career. I had everything I needed to be okay. And I was not okay.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's a real that's depression. That's
Yeah.
what that is. And so
And then those surgeries, I want to say those surgeries put me on pain medication, which got me addicted. And I ended up in a life of addiction for a long time after that, once I left the Army. And I think that that was planned as well
yeah.
to
Well,
decredit me.
if they had that looking glass machine that went down your whole timeline, they could have foreseen these events and known, and they can manipulate it, or they're already planned. However, all that works. So, yeah, that's
They
interesting.
also have suggestion tools where they can send just sentences, give you ideas, give you thoughts, give you fear. They have these machines like people in this world would know them as like riot machines where they have really loud spelling, right? To disperse things, to disperse people. Well, they have that invisibly for emotions and for thoughts. And so they can make you feel and think things and they can direct your life. And that's what they were doing.
Hmm. Yeah, and if you're none the wiser, you're just going to follow all of that without ever having a self awareness to, you know, sit with that and
Yes.
ask why.
Yes.
Okay. How long would you say until you started getting memories back, actually?
So I started to get the MK Ultra memories back in 2018. I got my first SSP or space, I want to say 2021, 2022, maybe. The space stuff came quickly. A lot of information really quickly, but the MK Ultra stuff, I still get information about. The last 3 days have been really intense for me. I'm getting a lot of more alter missions. I've gotten a lot of that over the last few days, and definitely some more space stuff that is going to go into that second book. So.
Yeah. Well, can't wait for that. Aaron, did you have any final questions before we start wrapping this part up?
Mm,
Okay.
no, not really.
Is there
I mean, it's
anything
still
that
fascinating.
is there anything we didn't cover, Morgan, that you would like to touch on before we wrap this up?
No, I want to say the best. It was fascinating. I learned a lot. I became a better person for it. It scared me in the beginning. I want people to know that there has been doubts about it. I have been, many nights freaking out, trying to figure out what's going on. I've been attacked a lot, going through this process of relearning and figuring out all these truths that have been happening, that it isn't all roses and butterflies. This is a very tough thing to come back from and do, but I don't regret it. I don't regret any part of my life. I am a little pissed off about there's some torturing when I was a little kid that I do think is unnecessary, even if you're going to have an SSP program. I don't think that was necessary. So, but
Yeah, I think a lot of the trauma-based mind control, I think, was more experimental. A lot of it was in the beginning, and I know just from my own research. And they did realize that there are ways, much better ways, more ethical ways to do this, if it's even ethical at all. But I think there's some of these original boomers that were in the program that actually still like to use that trauma. Maybe, I think it's a dying practice as far as, hopefully we can just pray that it's a dying practice and it's just no longer necessary anymore. But, um, you're only going to get the crazy people that would still like to do it for whatever reason and get pleasure out of it. But I don't think it's
Well,
necessary at all.
yeah, it depends on. I mean, when you're a psychopath, you
Right.
you actually like doing things like that, and the programs that are run by psychopaths, of course, they're going to do stuff like that.
What?
Unfortunately,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So if there is a program or a company or corporation out there still doing it, it's because of the person in charge and it's because of something
right,
like that. It's not necessary.
right.
Yeah, but
yeah, let's hope.
let's hope, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Well, that's
okay.
disclosure is the awakening, disclosure, and ascension. They're all tied together. They're all happening. So like that's why everything's coming out now, and that
Yeah.
naturally is putting an end to this stuff because we're waking up and we're not like before. No one knew hardly on this planet this was even happening, let alone like what like that there is other life out there or technology like this, right? It's just really been in the last 20 years or so that this massive awakening has happened. So
Mhm.
and we see things changing even on a governmental level and political level, down to that. It's like it's happening in all areas. So I think disclosure is inevitable, but that's why you see the evil control system elements that are still in play trying to get ahead of it because they know it's inevitable. So they're still trying to steer things so they stay in control and steer the narrative. It's not going to work, but they're going to keep trying. But that's why you see that push so hard and push so hard to get their agendas fulfilled now because they know they're out of time. But that's actually a really, really good sign because that means they're scared. It's not smooth sailing. They know time's up and that there is this inevitable awakening, just like what Bill Wood, the insider, talked about in that old Kerry Cassidy interview. He's like, they could even see it in their time viewing technology over and over again. No matter how many things they tried, what they did, it kept showing everything led to the same conclusion, which is the awakening and ascension and freedom of humanity. And that drove them insane because they like that's the last thing they can't have that because that means they lose their power. All
Right.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, they found that out about me starting a movement of some kind. I mean, I don't know if that's where my life is going or not anymore or yet or how that's going to work, but they saw that through the looking glass project when I was 15, and they knew that I was going to be a forerunner or be a person involved in being loud about disclosure and that type of thing. I think they wanted me to they wanted me to be scared forever, right? So they thought that I would,
Right.
but instead, the only reason I got my memories back was I had a Kundalini full chakra activation when I was in 2018. And that's when I started to get the memories back. And then once that ascension, I had a really quick ascension. And once that happened, all the memories, because there are many people out there who have these memories. They just aren't able to get to them because they're in the subconscious mind. So once you ascend enough, you're able to see into your unconscious mind and all that information comes up. And there's nothing you can do about it. It comes up whether you want it or not.
Right.
So that's where we're getting this information from.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm
Exactly.
glad you said that. I really like what you said about the timelines not having enough energy behind them and eventually fizzling out. I think that's what's happening right now with the disclosure. I'm not the disclosure, but all these other timelines that these nefarious groups are trying to put us on. There's no organic energy behind them, so they're eventually just going to die out, right? And then we're going to be left with this one main timeline. Even though, so they're going to create these consensus realities and all these things with these agendas, but eventually they're just going to fade away because there's nothing true behind them. There's no actual momentum that's going to keep them, because the truth is the only thing that's going to carry us forward. So
Yes. And if enough people don't give energy to it, then there's nothing to continue.
right, but that's why they're
Right.
constantly tricking us into giving it energy. So
It's not pure
So
source.
don't watch the news.
Exactly.
Right. It's like they're parasites. So like they need, like that, they need us to feed their systems, and we only are. That's only sustainable when we stay at a very unconscious, low vibrational level. The second we start raising, that naturally goes away because we're not going to keep consenting and to our own enslavement. Like that's not going to happen. So there's the split that we hear talking about, the bifurcation is the ascension, and there's like the natural source energy based timeline, and then there's like that parasitic timeline of control, which is what they're trying to steer us. I guess they're both going to play out maybe, but the other one's only going to like last for so long before, like you said, it naturally fizzles out because it only is able to sustain itself on parasiting off of organic source based creation or being. And
It's
the
like a
less and less they get of that, the less power that timeline has until it just isn't. It just like fizzles out. Right.
right. It's like a wave. It's eventually that wave is gonna
Right.
die out and crash somewhere. So
Right. There's
Yeah.
probably like a threshold there where it just collapses
Mhm.
at a certain point. Right.
Yeah. Or it hits a wall and comes back into itself and then
Or
it
however.
destroys itself. Yeah.
Right. And the Mandela effect going on, I think is like a symptom of this timeline stuff going on
Yeah.
right now. Do you know anything about the Mandela from the programs, or your opinion on what's going on with the Mandela effects?
I think it's exactly what you're talking about with different timelines. And the fact that people are noticing is showing how many people are ascending, whether they know it or not. I think there's a huge group of people that are ascending and actually have no idea that that's what's happening. Because I talk to people every day that feel things or know things or see things or just have these cool experiences, and yet they have no idea about spirituality and no clue, about any type of ascension so it's showing to the world that life is different than we think it is. Quantum physics literally explains all of it. And if people were to just get into like a simplified version of understanding quantum physics, it's just another potential. Yeah, and the fact that you can see another potential is showing that there is a raise in consciousness, whether people know it or not. And I think that's actually for the best. Like, I don't think everybody needs to go through this huge spiritual awakening. This stuff's hard. Like, you guys
Yeah.
know, this stuff is
Yeah.
not easy.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things, truths you don't want to know, things about yourself you learn that suck, and like ways you have to change your whole world to become a better person. And, maybe not everybody needs to go through it that way.
Well, it
Right.
creates a whole it's a, and not everyone wants to go through it also or is ready for that because it's a massive amount of responsibility now once you get to that level because now now you're fully responsible for your own actions and your own growth and your own path rather than just being this like hive mind herd mentality going along with what you're told with everyone else. That's the easy. That's like
Right.
the ignorance is bliss. That's the easy road. Staying in the matrix like Cypher. Like I just want to stay. I don't want to know any of that. I just want to go back and enjoy this delicious day. Ignorance is
Yeah.
bliss. A
Right.
lot of people are at that level. Like they're like, no, I don't even want to consider that any of this could be true or there could be anything outside of this manufactured Truman Show reality. I don't even want to think it's a true. I want to think this is reality because it's way easier to do that than it is to take responsibility for your own,
Right.
your own path.
Well, yeah, and then you can't make like you said, you're responsible for your own actions then. So you could write it off before as you just didn't know any better because you actually didn't. But
Right.
now that you know better, whenever you consciously choose something that you know isn't serving you and you know it's only hurting yourself and the
Mhm.
collective, there is a responsibility there. So
Mhm.
it's up to you to navigate that. And you have to let go of a lot that you identified with. And, this just gets into a bigger picture here. But I think we understand that we're all heading in the right direction at this point, and it might not look like it sometimes, but if you understand it from a zoomed out perspective and understand quantum physics, that's something I mentioned in my book as well because it really helped me it was like, oh, this is something that explains what we're going through. And not standard physics, quantum. Everything's quantum now because it's happening on a quantum level, and you have to bring the ether and things that you can't see that are actually there, and it's all happening. It's all real, and we have to come to terms with it.
Agree.
Yep.
So, Morgan, tell everyone once again where they can find your book, and if you have a website and all that stuff, just let them know how they can find you, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, so my book is called Manipulated Memories by Morgan Johnson. I have a website called Morgan, RAEJohnsonAuthor.com, and it's available. You can click a link from that website. I also do empowerment coaching, and I am available for in-person book signings and things like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And those links will be below in the description. Thank you guys all for joining us today. We hope you enjoy this. We can't do this without you. And until next time, have a great evening. Good night. Literally the way of the heart, and that's the way of the future. So
they are the ones that guard this planet. They open portals, they close portals, and they kind of protect us as a whole.
We wake up and we're like, holy shit, I've been lied to.
And I'm going to explain how this works and why they want our souls so badly.
When I'm talking about what is possible, I mean as far as the secret space program.
It's like this is the future, and it is a part of this golden age we're moving into. There's no hiding. You can't hide this, So
your quantum body, bringing more back online, like as in reloading past lives, soul fragments coming back, dismantling implants.
It might be different star languages that might come through. And we're talking a lot about dimensional beings, and they're very highly telepathic. So it's like looking around. It doesn't see us. It can't see us. I can see it, but it can't see us. It can hear us, and it knows something's going around.
But humanity does have a bright future, and I'm going to prove it to you beyond a shadow of a doubt.
The minute I came into their energy, I was like, this isn't a real human. Their eyes were different color. And so I do believe it was a clone.
This thing is going for sometimes years at a time on these missions. Is this thing going to other planets? And I knew that they wouldn't be able to respond, but I wanted to see their reaction because that was going to tell me. And it was good because she froze up and she looked at the back of the room to her superior military guy. And then she looked back at me and she's like, we can't talk about that.
And I can hear my higher self come in, and it's definitely my higher self, go, don't say a word, do not let them know who you are. And I began to leave my body at that point.
And it is biblical. I'm not a biblical person. I've never read the Bible. My family wasn't really religious, so it's just really interesting as I've been starting to get these updates, even through the Alliance, I'm discovering it is very much biblical.
When I got over there, a blue light come down right over me, and boom, I was on a ship. And I was looking at 6 people, 3 men, 3 women, and every one of them I looked at didn't seem very interested at all that I was there.